tau tītoki. Tau tītoki. Kōrero mai, tau tītoki. We talk about hei te tau tītoki. Tītoki you probably know as the tree. One of the attributes of the tītoki is that it will bloom when it feels like it. At some time in the future, it's not predictable. And so that's how we say, I'll see you at some time. So we will see you all again, hei te tau tītoki. This is not the end, it's just the beginning of something else. And so to get us in that mood, could you please welcome back someone who we've already heard from this afternoon, but someone really important to this particular challenge. Currently an ambassador for the New Zealand Biological Heritage National Science Challenge, and someone who can speak to us about the challenge of setting up the challenge and why mission-led science can focus on research that matters to make a real difference. Please welcome Professor Bruce Clarkson, University of Waikato and BioHeritage Ambassador.
Ena mana, ena reo, e rangatira mā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. It is my privilege to be involved in the Biological Heritage National Science Challenge. By some strange quirk of fate, I was approached at an afternoon tea during I think a Royal Society discussion about grand challenges by James Buwalder, and that's why I'm here today. I still don't know why, really. A strange thing. I wanted to really tell you a little bit about that challenge, about, what it was like setting this up. And of course, it's not just me. I was a minor cog in a very large wheel, and I did what I could at the time. And that's essentially the approach I'm taking today. I want you to show a little bit of patience about the wall of words that I'm going to project on the screen shortly, because all of those are historical documents. That's my justification. They are actually ingredients of events around the process of developing the challenge and getting it started. So we'll make a start first, though, by looking at the timeline. So Dan previously talked a little bit about his meeting with James in 2013. The public consultation for challenges started in 2012, and there was massive support, particularly for biodiversity and biosecurity. Ministerial decision caused the combination of those two elements to come together. There might have been two challenges. Would we have got double the money or not? That's the question, or whether they split the money. I'm still wondering about that. So then, of course, MB released a request for proposals, and that's where I came in, because James was obviously looking around to find somebody to help him in getting a proposal together. Because to get this thing started, it was about developing a proposal. And there are the dates. It was submitted April 2014 by the host, Manaki Whenua Landcare Research, on behalf of a consortium of research providers, 7 CRIs and 8 universities. And I'm just cutting straight to the chase. I'm going to tell you a bit more about this eventually, but approved for full funding on the 1st of August 2014. That was a historic moment, because a lot of other challenges didn't get that acclamation so quickly as we did. And then we had the refined plan accepted 2015, $25.8 million the first 5 years. From the outset, challenges were a point of debate in New Zealand, and I've just put up a couple of examples of the things that we were confronting. I mean, we weren't sitting in a vacuum here. We were actually trying to put something together that a lot of people thought was a mistake. And some of the commentary I felt was rather unbalanced and unfair. And I've trawled through all of my emails in preparing this talk. All of my emails from 2014, 2015, and I've found all sorts of stuff I had completely forgotten about, and I now know why I've forgotten about it. It was too damn painful to confront. So I put it aside, but I'm just going to let you know a little bit about this. Over the period of the early development phase, there was a whole lot of ongoing noise going on. That was a letter I wrote to somebody I have not named, who prepared a media release on Radio New Zealand, which I thought was particularly unfair. And I'm hoping you can see some of the key words in there which stake in the ground my view on mission-led science. Mission-led. And why I've always been a supporter of mission-led science. The significance of the fundamental shift in thinking from intense competitive processes to collaborative processes, single proposal, too, was understated and underestimated. I said here, I've been in the science sector a long time. Hell, I said that 10 years ago and I'm still in it. I can't believe it. Anyway, I just, James and I went on a road trip, and we went round the 7 and the 8, all of the institutions, and in some places we walked into rooms full of researchers, so-called researchers, mainly academic researchers. Many of them said straight to our face, "Oh, give us the money, we know what we're doing." We said, "Well, what do you think the taxpayer might say about that?" And we said, "Do you really know what you're doing? Do you really know what is needed? And are you going to work the full value chain from fundamental science through to application and implementation?" I've always been interested in implementation. That's where I come from. That is why I believe in mission-led research. Right, now getting on to the proposal development and some family history. So we did have an oversight group. I'm not going to name a lot of names because there's so many names involved in putting this thing together. We had a writing support committee, and of course we had the Manaaki Whenua Landcare Research Office, which helped in the whole process. And actually my whole family was mobilised in the preparation of this proposal. It is still a major bone of contention between me and my other half that she did not get to see Wills and Kate when they came to visit the Avantidrome in Cambridge on 13th of April 2014 to open the Avantidrome, and she wanted to be there, and that was the critical date of the finalising of the proposal before it went into the Landcare Research Office. And the whole family was in our house working on the proposal. My daughter at that point had just graduated in graphic design from the University of Waikato, and some of the lovely figures that appear in that proposal, I'll say lovely because my daughter made them. And they are in that proposal. At the end of the day, it was 92 pages submitted, not counting CVs and additional appendices. It's one hang of a document. Anyway, and then the feedback came in. I've just given you a few random examples of emails I received when they heard the notice that we got the funding. I haven't, again, named them for obvious reasons, but see the range of commentary there. I like the bit about persistence. What they actually meant was, I'm bloody stubborn. I would not give up until it was done. And then the other part there, notice how some scientists say very little. Well done. That scientist remains unnamed. And then one went a little bit further and said, wow, well done. Anyway, moving on. So as a consequence of that funding decision, we had to put together a revised plan, and to be honest, I think the requirement that we got was rather minimal compared to most other challenges. It was actually not too big a job to do the plan revision. And we went through a process, and this is where it gets really interesting. How many of you watch Australia Married at First Sight? Huh? Yeah, I do. That's my main method of relief on a Friday night. I'm looking for a comedy show, right? But boy, I can tell you, parts of what I'm now describing was like Australian, and I say Australian deliberately, Married at First Sight. So we had to find ways of bringing the right people into the room to get the right teams in place to address the key issues that we were trying to solve. And that was a challenge, because some institutions like protecting certain people and holding them back for various reasons that I'll never know, and then they like putting in others. I could be cynical and say they're ones that didn't have much funding. No, I better not say that. But you see, it was like a marriage circuit. You were trying to find the partners, the right partners, and the people who could work together. And so that is one example of one of the emails that I sent to the institutes. You know, people got automatic entry if they'd already been named in the proposal. And then the question is, did we have all the right people, and could people be added, and how would we do it? And so we went through the song and dance as people finally came up with their lists, and then all the lists came together. And very early on, of course, we made some very critical decisions around who was going to lead the process. And I want to really particularly point this one out. This was the beginning of the evolution of the role of Māori in this challenge. And it was only the bare beginning. And we've heard from Dan and others about the step change that occurred in the second tranche. But, you know, we had to get something in place first. And boy, we got a line up there, didn't we? Phil Wilcox, Nick Waipara, Amanda Black, Phil Liver, and most important, our Māori manager, Melanie Mark Shadbolt. I've learnt lots of things from those people. And we started the process of looking for the permanent director. Anyway, the workshops were undertaken, and there's the statistics: 130 participants, 108 participants representing all 7 CRIs, 8 universities, 22 participants from end users and stakeholders and all that stuff. And the notion that you would have ground rules. Now, don't read that too. It wasn't a dictatorship. It wasn't rules. It was a process that occurred where people contributed to getting down the list of the rules that we would follow to get what we wanted, which was an inclusive, collaborative team effort. And 2 key concepts emerged during that process, whanaungatanga and manaakitanga, which were embedded really early on in our process. And I will mention one name, Annie Perkins from Groundwork Associates, who was an amazing facilitator, who knew how to bring out the best in people and kept me in line when I overstepped the mark. So as a result of that process, we ended up with these projects briefs, 12, and they were initiated in the workshops, and they were proposed to, you know, be the basis for the revised research plan. You see the way that wording's written there? That was reporting back as part of the process. It still hadn't quite been done, but it was underway. And then the idea of the end user advisory panel proposed at that stage, late 2015, and the governance group meeting scheduled for 5 February 2015 to consider which projects might be suitable as lead-off projects to begin early in 2015. The way we did the projects briefs, I think, is also important, because we'd already been given the commitment of funding, so we had essentially a peer-reviewed proposal that had been approved, but we still needed to work on it. And these were some of the principles that we tried to adopt in refining the proposals, integrating across taxa sectors and ecosystem, emphasising novelty, explicit links to aligned funding, all that stuff. And then the one that I think caused the most debate, integration of vision, mātauranga, and notice in brackets, also standalone VM projects. You know, the use of that word integration is problematic, isn't it? In this arena, integration can mean different things to different people, and what it means to Māori is most significant. It's up to them to tell us what they want. And I think we had a bit of tension there, but we worked our way through it. And then the notion of pulling in co-funding over time. So we ended up with mission statements, and my memory is a bit hazy on this, but I do remember the one at the top is the one that was in the proposal. But when you read it, it's a classic proposal mission, really, isn't it? It's just a bit too much, like a step change in research innovation, globally leading technologies and community. Well, okay, I get what it wants, but does it actually tell us what we're going to be doing? And so I know we had this other one in the bag as well. Protect and manage our biodiversity, improve our biosecurity, and enhance our resilience to harmful organisms. So yes, it was a new national partnership. It was one bid. It was 7 CRIs and 8 universities, and MPI and DOC signed in a big way at the outset, and participation of iwi and hapu was begun pretty early on. Industry showed a lot of interest, and community programs like Predator Free were also likely at that stage to join, and we know that they did, and and some of the aligned philanthropic funding from Next ended up in places where it was also relevant to our program. And then that last one, public citizen science, offers huge opportunity. I'm pretty confident in some areas we have capitalised on that. But you know, the other thing about the bid was the new language that it introduced to New Zealand science, and I'm not particularly necessarily in favour of all of this new language. That word additionality caused so much trouble. I mean, does anyone even still know what it means? I think I do. It was mentioned in the bid at least 31 times. Integration was mentioned something like 42. Alignment was mentioned. Governance was mentioned 159 times. I'm not sure about that message, but when it was governance and management together, it drops down to about 32. Yeah. Okay, so the role of the new funding was to catalyse innovative research, to strengthen the connections, to take interdisciplinary approaches, and to align and build on existing research programs. There's that lovely figure again, I must repeat it. My daughter created that figure. It's got the two pillars of the two programs, Program 1 and Program 2, real-time assessment and reducing risks and threats, and then that overarching framework, which has ended up in words like restore and protect and tiaki and pakuhu. All of those things were in that initial proposal, and then I just love the way that figure fits together, I have to tell you. Anyway, overarching theme, resilience. Here we come into the new era. So this was the handover state of play. This is where we were at the days that it was handed over to Andrea. The project proposals on a continuum, a permanent director, 1st of July 2015, Andrea Byram. 5 projects start imminent, 2 to 3 more to follow. Kahui Māori, an end user advisory panel operation, criteria for project assessment developed. Kai Hotu providing input on all project briefs, Māori manager appointed and oversees all projects. And then just one example, because I'm running out of time, one example of where we were at handover. And I've deliberately picked this one because I've been sitting here yesterday and today listening to the amazing amount of progress that's been made in relation to wasp control and varroa mite and all the rest. And the point I wanted to make is those ones were up and going really early. They've had almost 10 years of operation. But you know what? In the time scale of what it takes to deliver the result that's required, that is probably even still not enough. 10 years of development, is that realistic to think you would then have a product that you'll actually be at implementation phase? I don't think it is. I don't think our funders and many of our supporters understand the timescales that are required for some of this research to get it to the implementation phase. That's the main point I wanted to make, but I also wanted to congratulate Ocean and Philip for the amazing progress they have made in that area. I also want to reflect very quickly on what is going on in New Zealand science at the moment. This was the figure from the 2015-2025 Statement of Science Intent put out by the government, and it shows the different pockets of money that make up the total funding system. And there is a figure in there which says 127 million national science challenges. Well, not just ours, there was 11 of them, ours, and then it's got this little bracket note about CRI core funding included. Well, there's a bit of lack of transparency in some of those figures, is all I'll say at this stage. Anyway, and then compare that with the PBRF fund of $300 million. All of these things are currently up in the air. All of them. It's not just about the future of national science challenges, it's about the future of funding of the whole of the science system. And we need to keep that in our brain, because we are going to have to be advocates, and we're going to have to do something about making sure we get our message through on what we think is the best approach to funding the whole of the science sector. And we must put a stake in the ground about ensuring there is an adequate balance between investigator-led and mission-led and commercialisation and technology development, because it's the total ecosystem that will lead to the benefit, the full benefit of the investment for Aotearoa New Zealand. So this is where I'm getting to the critical bit, the future. Actually, I'm quite optimistic, believe it or not. I'm optimistic because of that legacy of relationships that we've developed and what we've done in relation to theory, practice and implementation. I think we've got evidence of that whole value chain where we have delivered. And again, I'll come back to 10 years is pretty amazing for something that started from scratch, from something like Australia Married at First Sight, right? There are still a whole bunch of aligned programs fully connected to this challenge that are going to be carrying on for a little while yet. So we're not fully dead, you know, we're still kicking strongly. My program, I'll say mine, my team's program that we've been working on now for almost 3 years, People, Cities and Nature, is fully aligned with the challenge, and we've got another 2 years of funding to go. So we're gonna work on keeping that legacy alive as well. And I know there are other programs out there that will be doing the same thing. And I'm confident that there will be new opportunities emerge. But one positive way you could think about this is you're now a member of an exclusive club and the membership is just closing. I used the same argument to be optimistic about the closure of DSIR Botany Division back between 1993. Because it is amazing how even I can reflect on that other group of people, that other exclusive club that I originally joined, and we still all keep in contact and we still do research together. So why wouldn't it happen for this one? Ongoing research impact. I will mention one paper here because I worked with a good number of people named on here, including Andrea and David Norton and Phil Liver and all of us, and we produced this paper, How Do We Restore New Zealand's Biological Heritage by, notice the date. Why aren't we carrying on till 2050 is the question I'm posing. Because again, isn't it realistic that that's what it would take? We are talking about systems in Aotearoa New Zealand that have been degraded for more than 150 years in some cases, and we are thinking we're going to fix it in 10 years? No way. It's going to take much more to fix not only the taiao, but all of the relationships that were broken during the process of that land clearance, that land confiscation, and that degradation of our Aotearoa New Zealand environment. So I remain, however, confident, and I'm not today saying haere rā to ngā koiora tuku iho at all. I'm thinking about what will happen next, but I am also contemplating my own mortality. Thinking about that 2050 deadline, you know? Actually, I'll be 100 when that occurs. I've been around in the science system for quite a while, but I will be looking to see whether we've made what we predicted in that paper for 2050. And if I don't do it, I'm sure Andrea will be checking, or Kiri or Catherine or some of my other colleagues. They'll be checking back on that paper to make sure that we got where we said we could get. Or I may simply be a single drop of rain, but I will remain. I'll be back again and again and again. Any prizes for the person who can guess where that comes from? Did you know that Willie Nelson was an ecologist? Did you know that Chris Christopherson was an ecologist? He's talking about reincarnation and nutrient cycles. I'm sure of it. And that's what I'm hanging my hat on, and that's where I'm finishing. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Te miharo hoki. I look forward to when you make a statement on your 100th birthday, but first of all you have to get through that difficult anniversary on the 13th of April, which is coming up. The anniversary of that day that your wife didn't get to meet Well and Kate. So kia kaha. And in terms of a Married at First Sight get together, I don't watch it, but my husband does, so I accidentally see some of it. It's doing pretty well for one of those experiments. Tēnā rawa te koe, beautiful kōrero. And